Pay attention to the timestamp in the top right corner of the third floor elevator footage. It reads 6:14 a.m. A man steps into the elevator. Gray jacket, long cut, dark collar visible underneath, black backpack on his right shoulder. His head is angled slightly forward and to the left. Not dramatically, not conspicuously, but enough. The elevator doors close. The floor indicator moves to 3. Now go back 1 week. Same camera, same elevator. 6:17 a.m. Same man, same jacket, same angle of the head. Go back another week. 6:12 a.m. Same man. Nora Voss is the one who found this. She is 38 years old and has worked as a senior security officer at Caldwell Professional Center for 9 years. Before this position, she spent 4 years at a retail security firm and 2 years doing overnight access monitoring for a hospital system in a neighboring county. She understands, in a way that is difficult to articulate but easy to demonstrate, how people move through buildings, the rhythms of occupancy, the patterns that belong, and the patterns that do not. Every Tuesday morning, she sits at the desk in the ground floor security office and reviews the previous week's camera footage. 24 cameras, 6 floors, 11 tenant companies. It takes between 2 and 3 hours depending on what she finds. Most weeks she finds nothing that requires action. A door propped open after hours. A delivery left in an unmarked area. A parking dispute captured at an angle too poor to be useful. She files a weekly summary and moves on. She has filed 41 consecutive weekly summaries without a finding that required escalation. This Tuesday is the 42nd. This Tuesday, she does not move on. She goes back further. 17 days. 19. 23. Every single weekday morning for 23 consecutive business days, between 6:12 and 6:19 a.m., the same man enters the elevator on the ground floor and selects the third floor. He arrives before the building's general occupancy begins at 7:30. He arrives before the cleaning crew finishes their rounds. He arrives as far as Nora can determine from the footage, before any other occupant of the third floor. He also arrives, every single time, without signing in at the front desk. The front desk is unstaffed before 7 a.m. Nora knows this. The building's after-hours access protocol relies on the badge system. A registered badge grants entry at the main door, and every badge swipe is logged against the registered holder. Nora pulls the access log for the third floor for the same 23-day window. Badge number C-0471. Logged in at the main door each morning between 6:11 and 6:18. Logged again at the third floor stairwell access point. Registered holder, Claire Soss, Senior Data Analyst, Merrin Data Analytics Ltd, third floor, Suite 3C. Nora pulls the current employee directory for Merrin Data Analytics from the building's tenant records. Claire Soss is listed. She has been a tenant employee for 3 years. Her badge photo is on file. Nora looks at the photo. She looks at the elevator footage. She looks at the photo again. The person in the elevator footage is not Claire Soss. She calls Martin Hargrove, the detective assigned to Caldwell Professional Center's contract with the Crestfield Police Department's Commercial Crimes Liaison Unit at 9:02 a.m. She tells him what she has found. She uses specific language. 23 days, the same individual, badge number C-0471, registered to a person who does not match the individual on camera. Hargrove asks her to preserve the footage and not to contact Merrin Data Analytics until he has spoken with her in person. He arrives at 10:15 a.m. He watches the footage. All 23 instances. He does not speak while he watches. When the last clip ends, he asks Nora 2 questions. Has she identified any other irregularities in the same footage window? And has the badge been flagged as lost or stolen in the building system? The answer to the first question is no. The answer to the second question requires Nora to check. C-0471 is listed in the badge management system as active. It has not been flagged as lost, stolen, or deactivated. Nora cross-references the system notes. 6 weeks earlier, a notation was added to Claire Soss's employee file. Badge replacement requested. C-0471 reported lost by employee. New badge issued C-0512. The notation was entered by the building's facilities coordinator. A new badge had been issued. The old badge had not been deactivated. Someone had made a clerical error. Someone else had used it for 23 consecutive mornings. Hargrove calls Claire Soss directly. She answers on the third ring, her voice carrying the particular quality of someone who has not yet been told something that will change how they understand the last several weeks of their life. He identifies himself and asks about the badge. She confirms. She lost it approximately 6 weeks ago. In the parking structure, she believes, during the evening commute. She reported it immediately, received a replacement, and assumed the old badge had been canceled. She did not follow up to confirm. Hargrove asks if she has noticed anything unusual about her workstation or her files in the past several weeks. She says no. He asks if she has had any unauthorized access notifications from the company's internal systems. She says no, and then pauses, and says she would not necessarily receive those notifications. They go to the IT department and to senior management. He thanks her and ends the call. The third-floor server room at Caldwell Professional Center is accessible only to employees of Merrin Data Analytics with a specific access tier. The server room has its own badge reader, its own internal camera, and its own access log, maintained separately from the building's general system. Hargrove requests the server room log for the same 23-day window. The log shows C-0471 entering the server room each morning, following the elevator entry, at intervals of between 2 and 4 minutes. Average time inside, 17 minutes. The same workstation terminal each time. Designation, T07. T07 is assigned to Claire Soss. Hargrove requests a forensic review of T07's session logs. The review takes 11 hours and is conducted by a digital forensics specialist contracted by the Crestfield Police Department. The results are precise and, in their precision, damning. Each morning session had involved the same sequence of actions: authentication using Claire Soss's stored credentials, navigation to a specific client database, extraction of a defined dataset, transfer to an external device connected via USB port on the right side of the workstation, disconnection of the device, and logout. The authentication timestamps show the login occurring within 90 seconds of the server room badge entry, consistent with someone who had rehearsed the process. The session durations, averaging 17 minutes, were consistent with someone who knew exactly where to go and what to take, and how long each transfer required. This was not exploratory. This was not accidental. This had been planned, executed, and repeated 23 times across 23 consecutive business days without a single deviation in method. 14 different client databases had been accessed across the 23 sessions. The combined records extracted exceeded 340,000 individual data entries, client contact information, contractual terms, pricing structures, strategic forecasts, and in several cases, the proprietary analytical models that form the core of Merrin's competitive offering. The question of who had done this was answered 4 days into the investigation through a combination of the elevator footage and the building's parking structure cameras. The elevator footage from day 4 of the 23-day window contained a 2.3-second interval as the doors began to close, during which the individual's face was angled directly toward the camera. The angle was brief, and the image was not high resolution, but it was sufficient. Facial recognition, cross-referenced against the building's historical visitor log and the broader law enforcement database, produced a match with a confidence level that Hargrove described as unambiguous. Douglas Farr, 47 years old, independent consultant, working primarily in the data analytics sector for the past 11 years. He had previously held a senior position at a regional data services firm before leaving to work independently. His professional profile listed his primary engagement for the past 8 months as a strategic advisory contract with NextBridge Analytics, a data services firm operating in the same sector as Merrin Data Analytics, pursuing the same category of enterprise clients, competing directly for the same long-term service contracts in the same geographic market. His connection to Caldwell Professional Center was documented and straightforward. 7 months earlier, he had entered into a 3-month consulting agreement with a small intellectual property law firm on the 5th floor. The agreement had been a legitimate professional engagement. It had granted him building access and a registered visitor badge for its duration. The agreement had concluded 4 months before the first unauthorized elevator entry appeared on the footage. His access to the building should have ended when the contract ended. The law firm had notified building management of the contract conclusion in writing. Building management had noted it in the tenant file. The visitor badge issued to FAR for the duration of the contract had, in the transition between management staff handling that file, not been formally deactivated. A second clerical gap. In a building with 11 tenants and a facilities coordination system that processed several hundred badge transactions per month across rotating staff assignments. The parking structure camera from the evening Claire Soss lost her badge placed Douglas Farr in the structure at the relevant time. The camera angle did not capture the moment the badge was dropped or retrieved, but it established his presence in the structure within 52 seconds of the moment Claire's badge is last visible on her person in the adjacent camera frame. He had not found the badge by accident. He had been in the parking structure specifically, at that time, because Claire Soss's commute pattern, her consistent departure time, her consistent parking location, was observable from the 5th floor of a building he had been entering legitimately for 3 months. Hargrove presented this reconstruction to the district attorney's office along with the full forensic record. 23 server sessions, 14 databases, 340,000 extracted records, and the subsequent commercial activity of NextBridge Analytics. NextBridge Analytics had submitted competitive bids to 9 of Merrin's 14 affected clients in the 3 months following the first unauthorized entry. In each case, NextBridge's bid had been priced at a figure that undercut Merrin's most recent proposal. The margin was not random. Across all 9 bids, the average differential was 6% below Merrin's offer, a figure that required specific knowledge of Merrin's pricing, not general market estimation. In 3 of the 9 cases, NextBridge's bid also included language addressing specific concerns that Merrin's client files documented as the client's primary contractual hesitation. Language that was not publicly available. Language that had been extracted, in full, from the client files on T07. 2 of the 9 clients had already signed with NextBridge before the investigation concluded. 7 had not yet made a final decision. All 7 were notified of the investigation's findings and the origin of NextBridge's bid information. None of them signed with NextBridge. Douglas Farr was arrested at his home office on a Thursday morning. He was cooperative during the arrest and did not speak without his attorney present. His attorney's initial statement described the allegations as circumstantial and the evidence as subject to alternative interpretation. The forensic record, the session logs, the facial recognition, the parking structure timeline, and the NextBridge bid analysis were not subject to alternative interpretation that the jury found persuasive. He was convicted on charges of unauthorized computer access, theft of trade secrets, wire fraud, and identity theft in connection with the use of Claire Soss's badge credentials. He received a sentence of 7 years. NextBridge Analytics was named as a co-defendant in a civil proceeding brought by Merrin Data Analytics. The civil case was settled out of court. The terms were not disclosed. Caldwell Professional Center implemented 2 procedural changes in the months following the case. The first, any badge reported lost or stolen triggers an automatic deactivation within 4 hours, regardless of whether a replacement has been issued, regardless of which staff member processes the notification, and regardless of whether a confirmation step has been completed. The deactivation is automatic. It cannot be overridden without a supervisor code and a documented reason. The second, visitor badges issued for contract duration access are now automatically flagged for deactivation upon contract end, with a required confirmation step before the flag is cleared. A step that requires the signature of both the departing contract holder's primary contact and the building facilities manager. The procedures were drafted in part based on a written summary submitted by Nora Voss at the request of building management. Her summary was 4 pages. It described both gaps, their origin, and the sequence of events that resulted from each of them. It did not editorialize. It did not assign blame. It described what had happened and what should happen instead. Building management adopted both recommendations without modification. Claire Soss continued working at Merrin Data Analytics. In the weeks following the arrest, she reviewed every client file she had access to and submitted a written account to management of her own badge loss incident. The exact date, the parking location, the time, the sequence of events as she remembered them. The account was entered into the case record. She kept her new badge on a lanyard clipped to the exterior of her bag, visible, never buried inside it. She checked for it before leaving any room. She did not lose it again. She was not asked to do any of this. She did it because she understood, now, what a misplaced badge could mean when the right person was paying attention to the wrong things. Nora Voss still reviews the footage every Tuesday morning. The desk is the same. The monitors are the same. The coffee is the same temperature by the time she gets to the 3rd hour. What she looks for has changed. She's looking for patterns now, not for anomalies in isolation, but for sequences, repetitions, the shape of behavior across time. A single entry does not tell you much. A single unfamiliar face in a stairwell, a single after-hours door, a single delivery in the wrong location. These things have explanations. They have context. They resolve. 23 entries at the same time, through the same door, with the same badge, on the same floor, to the same terminal, tells you something is wrong even before you can name what it is. The pattern is the evidence. The repetition is the confession. She had not been looking for a pattern. She had simply been doing her job carefully enough and consistently enough and for long enough to find one.